10 awesome composition tips to help you improve your writing. Whether you want to write for TV, film, games, or just for your own fun, these 10 top tips will massively improve your writing. There is a cheeky bonus 11th step as well, so make sure you stay through to the end. Let's get straight into it. We're going to look at 2 of the biggest themes from Star Wars and compare them and see how one is used to compose the other. The first thing we're going to look at is see how melodies work really, really well when they're centered around the chord which is going on in the background. So, for example, in the main theme to Star Wars, which starts in the key of A major, the melody starts on the 5th note of that scale and then goes up to the 8th or 1st note of the scale and then up to the 5th. And the next octave up. So you can see straight away how closely the melody is following notes of the chord. There's A major again. And then if we use notes from the scale in between, so the D, for example, isn't in the chord, the C sharp is, and the C sharp is that major third. So what's happening is, as I descend from the 5th down to the 4th, down to the 3rd, I'm using what we call chord tones, the E and the C sharp, and we use the D in between to use as what we call a passing note. It's a note from the scale, but it's not in the chord. So tip number 1, use notes from the chord to really lock that strong sense of key, that strong sense of tone, that strong sense of the chord, so that your listener can really focus and lock onto the melody that you are composing. The second thing we're going to look at is notice how that C sharp is the 3rd note of the major chord. And what that means is that amongst all the other notes, that's the happiest sounding one. Why? Because it's the only note that changes between the major chord and the minor chord. A major, A minor. So when you use the major third, that's the one that's telling you it's a happy sound. So if the 3rd is used, especially if it's emphasized, if it's used a lot or is used on a strong downbeat, then that means that your tune will sound happier because you're using the happiest sounding notes. The third tip that we'll look at is the way that you move around this melody, the way that you move from each of these notes puts context to the melody as a whole. What does that mean? Well, that's all rising. It's all rising all the way through in that very opening section. A little fall down, and then instead of going down to the A, the 1st note of the scale, little fall down using that major 3rd, and then we go up to the 1st note of the scale again. Remember, A is the 1st note of the scale of A. So drop down. Instead of finishing here, we go up to the A. So you can see there's this constant moving up, this uplifting feel of the melody as a whole. Tip number 4, instead of just having notes after notes after notes, create some space within your melody. Star Wars, no pun intended. The way that we create space within it is, notice that we've got these short notes at the beginning, and then there's it's just a longer note. It's not a pause. Okay, so can you hear how the first time I go to that A, there's a longer note. So we've got short notes, longer note, short note, even quicker notes, and then there's a slight pause, a longer note. So there's a mix of long notes and short notes. And you might think, duh, well, that's obvious. I'm just sort of coming up with a rhythm. But notice that what's happening is there's repeated rhythmic phrases, a difference or a balance between short notes and long notes. Why do we do that? Because otherwise, if you've just got notes after notes after notes after notes after notes, it just becomes boring. It's just a bunch of notes to the ears. But if you space up, if you mix up the difference between short notes and long notes, then you create space within your melody, which in turn creates interest. So let's have a listen to that and see how that fits. See what I mean? Now it starts to get even more interesting. Let's reverse the theme. Instead of now jumping up to the fifth, let's now just step up. Instead of jumping up to the fifth, let's step up one note. And now instead of having a descending melody in the original theme, let's have something that rises instead. So we've reversed the idea. Instead of jumping up to the melody and descending, let's jump up a little bit and then continue rising. So we're approaching the melody from the bottom up instead of the top down. We're reversing our idea. Next, remember that your initial theme to Star Wars was in a major key. Happy sounding. Next, let's continue that ascending idea from the previous tip, but let's go minor. The first theme that we looked at was major, happy sounding. Now let's go minor. The third note of the minor scale. If it had gone to a C sharp, it would have sounded happy. But if I go to C natural from the minor key, it's gone sad. So now you might recognize one of the other most famous themes from Star Wars. See what I mean? Next, if I use the chords from the key of A minor, they would be all naturals, all white notes. So for example, I'd have chords like A minor, D minor, E minor. But there's a really neat thing we can do in composing, which is where we use what we call borrowed chords. And we're going to borrow them from the parallel major key. What does this mean? We're in A minor. But if I use a D major chord, that's from the major key. So I've borrowed it from A major. I'm in A minor, but I've borrowed one from A major. They're called parallel keys. The key of A minor and the key of A major are parallel keys. So if I borrow one of those chords from the parallel major, my ear would have expected a sad change, for example, the sad sound change. So if I go from A minor to D minor, sad sound. But if I go from A minor to D major, my ear was expecting something sad, but it's as if the bright filter got turned up. It's even brighter than I expected. So that sounds really, really triumphant. Have a listen to this. See what I mean? Next, there's a way of adding tension and weaken a chord to make the next bit sound even stronger. Let me show you how we do it. In the next part of the theme, we've got which then goes to a chord of A minor, but over an E in the bass. This is chord 1, but we're doing it over the 5th note of that chord. There's a way of analysing that further. We'll look at all of this in Composer Launch Pack. But what's happening here is we have added tension into the music. We've got A minor, chord 1, the strongest chord, but in a weak format. We've added tension into the music. This music now resolves to chord 5. Notice that the left hand stayed on the E. So we've gone from chord 1 over the E in the bass, A minor over E, to a chord of E, to a chord of A minor. So we have tension, which resolves to the end of the music. These progressions at the end of phrases are called cadences. We'll learn all about cadences in Composer Launch Pack. Next, if you're going to write and be creative about your own themes, you need to truly put yourself in the position of what the mood is that you're trying to put across. Are you trying to write something happy? Are you trying to write something sad? Are you trying to write something powerful? So by listening to music that you love in the style that you like and the style that you want to write in, you'll gain influence and inspiration. This is a good thing. You can then use those tools and ideas and develop them into your own music. How do you analyze the music? That's what our ear training does in Composer Launch Pack. We show you all about how to analyze your favorite music so you can use those ingredients in your own tunes. And step 10, the stronger that you play something, quite often the brighter it goes, so the more passionate it sounds. So if you're trying to write something soft and gentle, play soft and gentle. But if you're trying to write something strong and dramatic and dynamic, then play stronger. It sounds brighter and it makes you feel the strength and the passion of which you're trying to put across in your music, and therefore will sound more convincing. Bonus tip, join the freemium section. That's right, we'll give you free access to Composer Launch Pack. All you got to do is click the link and you'll be taken straight through to this. Just click the link in the bio, create an account, a free account, and you'll be taken through to this section here. And once you click the Start Here section, it'll open up for you where you'll get a walkthrough video of exactly what Composer Launch Pack is all about, plus over a half-hour video of free training that really goes into depth on chords and keys to give you the basics of what you need to make your composing easier, better, and more fun. Follow and like for more.